All right, it is Hello Again Wednesday, number 67. And let's get a little picture thing going here. Hello Again Wednesday, number 67. I'm so glad you guys are with me this Wednesday. Hopefully, I know I cut off my intro. I am actually working on my own. Been working on it for a little bit. It will not be fantastic, but it will be my own. And so I am working on that and about to maybe import that in the next couple of weeks coming up. So with this Wednesday right here, I just want to make sure that, first of all, that I thank you for joining me each Wednesday. Thanks for being a part of this in the afternoon, whatever time that you're watching this. Thank you for checking things out. You can always watch Hello Again Wednesdays that I do every Wednesday here on Facebook on my page. I bump it over to even our church page, which is Culver City Church of God Ministries, and you can see it there. Or I even have a YouTube channel that I put it on to called Brent Miller, What's on His Mind, and you can always check it out there also. I would encourage you, please share these videos, share your comments, give it a like, give it that thumbs up, click those buttons, make sure you get the notifications and that you're following it so you see when I pop up and stuff like that. And join me every Wednesday for what I call Hello Again Wednesday. And I would really appreciate it if you do that with me this week too. This week, you saw early on in the screen, it was nicknames. That is the question of the day. Do you have a nickname? Have you been given a nickname by anyone in particular? And, have you given a nickname to someone else? And I'm probably going to go just a touch deeper with it at the end of this segment, but that's what it's about today. It is about nicknames. One of the reasons is just yesterday I was reminiscing with a friend about jobs, having a job and, the jobs we've had through life and stuff like that. And it just reminded me of a nickname that was given to me way back in that it was the summer of 81, in between my 81-82 school year. And it was that summer. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to come back to it in just a moment. I'm going to kind of go a little further than 1981 with some of the nicknames that I personally have been given early on in my school age years. Hanging out with my friends, playing ball with them, just goofing off with them, hanging out with them in the parks and stuff like that. Hanging out with my friends. And it's probably the same with some of you. In fact, I know because with Boomer, it was with, I could hear him doing it, having it done with him, with his friends. And that is, rather than being called Brent, I was always called by my last name, Miller. Hey, Miller. Hey, Miller. Hey, Miller. And that was probably it's not really a nickname. It's just kind of, instead of calling me by my first name, they digressed to this section of my name. That was my first calling of something other than my first name. Then back in 1978, I believe it was 1978, we moved down to Augusta, Georgia. My dad had re-enlisted into the Army, and we moved down to Fort Gordon, Georgia in Augusta. And I was given another nickname down there. I was trying to search through all my Hello Again Wednesday to see if I've ever told these stories. I don't think I have. But in Augusta, Georgia, in the back of our yard, in between the pine trees on hard dirt, red clay, we played basketball. We had a basketball hoop up on one of those pine trees, and me and my buddies would go in the backyard and shoot hoops. Well, back then in 78, I was wearing green Converse All-Star shoes. I think they were high tops. I would have the high top socks with green stripes. I wore green shorts back in those late 70s, early 80s shorts. I wore the green shorts, and I usually had a green t-shirt, a green windbreaker, stuff like that. And I got the nickname Martian Man. Now, I'm going to tell you this. It had nothing to do with the fact that I could sky up into space and shoot some awesome hoop. It had nothing to do with that. It just had to do with the fact that I wore a lot of green, such as a Martian Man. Then, After in 78, we were only there for a year and a half. And in 79, the middle of my sophomore, the middle of my freshman year in high school, we moved to Belgium, right by Mons, and it was S.H.A.P.E, Supreme Headquarters, Allied Powers Europe. Got a lot of friends that we reminisce and hook up on some of those things. And so at S.H.A.P.E, I got another nickname in the middle of that. And so it was back in the summer of, well, let's see, before I go into, it would have been the first nickname I got was before 1981. In 1981, I got a nickname that really stuck and has stuck, even to this day, but it has stuck. And so, but before 1981, I wanted to go back to the first year that I was there. It would have been, it might have been 1980. If you wanted to, there's two ways to make money as a kid, and that was to work at the Bon Marché, which is where the grocery store was, and you could bag groceries for tips. And we would show up in the weekends and stuff like that and make some money. But the other way would be summer hire. The military had a program because it was so hard to get jobs. The military had a program for kids. And so I had a couple of jobs. I had a job where I just shot a lot of foosball, played ping pong, threw darts, shot pool. And that was because my summer hire job was in the motor pool. And as a kid, you couldn't mess with any of the equipment. So we just made money by goofing off. And I'm just being honest. And then another job I had, which would have been 1981 going into 1982. And that was, I got a summer hire job at the hospital right there. You know, the base is small. And so here's this hospital. I got a job in the kitchen. And in the kitchen, you wore all white. And, you know, just like doctors and nurses, you wore all white and stuff like that in the kitchen. And one day I had messed up and spilt some, I believe, ketchup or salsa or something on my white pants and overshirt. And so it, you know, hey, it looked like blood and gore on medical scrubs. And so I had gotten the nickname from my buddies right in front of the teen center. I'll never forget it. Right in front of the teen center, I got this nickname called Dr. Miller. And so with one of the reasons probably that nickname stuck so much is in 19 going into 1982, I had this one teacher, and I admire her. She's gone, but I admire her, Miss Brannick. And some people thought that she was probably one of the harder teachers to pass classes with and stuff like that. And I didn't have that big of a problem, but she gave all of us a warning at the beginning of the school year and so we're sitting in her class, and back then they had seating charts. And so with the seating chart, there were squares. And so, you know, you go down the row and you sat in one of the squares. So I had a buddy that sat in front of me, and we're close to the back. So I had a buddy that sat in front of me, and he wrote his name in his square, and he wrote Dr. Miller. Slow down. She told us whatever name you put in that box is what she will call you. You need to respect her that much. Whatever name's in that box, she will call you that. And so a buddy sitting in front of me wrote his name in his, wrote Dr. Miller in my box. And so he passes it back, and I get it. Yeah, that is so funny. So I scratch off Dr. Miller, and I write my name, Brent Miller, and I hand it to my buddy sitting behind me, who sees that I scratched off Dr. Miller. He scratches off my name and writes Dr. Miller again. Then it goes up to the front of the next row and stuff. And so then Miss Brannick, gets this paper, and she looks down, and there is, out of all those classmates, I could be wrong, because it's me personally, and it stuck out. Out of all of that, Dr. Miller. And so she called me doc. I had this lady for, I believe it was like economics or something like that, where you had to read a magazine, you had to read articles and all that stuff. Classmates will remember this. And every Monday you had to report on what was in what you read, hoping no one else took your story and stuff like that. It was kind of a hard class, but I had her for that year. She called me Dr. Miller all through that year. And then my senior year, you had to take senior English, do a senior thesis, and all that stuff. And I got her for senior English. And she had already called me Dr. Miller for a year. And so in senior English, she called me Dr. Miller all through that year. And I will never, I admire her. She was a great lady, great teacher. She let me have a lot of slack. I'll say that. But man, yep, she called me Dr. Miller for 2 years. That was my nickname. And I probably, you know what? Well, I think that if you know what? In fact, she called me Dr. Miller. You know how at the end when you're graduating, I was a dumb kid, made some mistakes and stuff like that, and I can remember probably some teachers were glad to see me go, but on the podium, graduation podium, you have all your teachers and all of them are up there. They give out awards and stuff like that. I didn't get none, but I can remember even graduating. It was good having you in class, Dr. Miller. And so it really meant a lot to me. She was a great lady. So, anyways, after 2 straight years of that, I'm going to say this. I can imagine maybe if I was to ever sit in a high school reunion or something like that, that if the name Dr. Miller came up in it, maybe, just maybe, I would be remembered. And I can say it this way. There is one. I talked to him. I got to give him a call. It's been a couple of weeks now because man, it seems like we were talking every week. And so I'll be the one that gives him a call. Chumley, a nickname. His name's John. Chumley, called him Chumley. Everybody knows Chumley. And you know what? Chumley still calls me Dr. Miller. So anyways, that was a nickname I have had. And that one especially has stuck with me through all these years. I have actually given out nicknames to Connie. And in fact, I think I posted it a couple of weeks, last week or so for our anniversary, that one of the nicknames for a long time I called Connie Susie Q, Susie Q, Susie Q, and just kind of connected it to Creedence CCR, Creedence Clearwater Revival, and their song Susie Q. Called Connie that for a long time. Called her Babe way before Susie Q. Even in the letters that I have written, she still has some in the closet memories. During high school, I would write Babe. And so she has been Babe for a very, very, I've probably called her Babe more than I've called her Connie. But this nicknames that I have given. One of the things, and I'm about to be done here. One of the things was when Christian was to be born, and Connie found out we were having a boy and stuff like that, and what name should we name him and stuff like that. And I told her right from the get-go I was going to name him. I was going to legally name him Boomer. And I have don't ask me why. Was it Boomer from football or Boomer this way? Nope. For some reason, Boomer just hit me, and I was going to legally name him Boomer unless she named him. And of course she did. She named him Christian. I was in agreement with it, but I have called him Boomer for, it will be this June, 23 years. I will have called him Boomer. Not a lot of people get away with it. And I bet he doesn't prefer anyone else doing it. But which means, this is why, you know what? Because of this segment, he has a name that he allows other people to call him, and that's Bubby. His nieces and nephews, they call him Bubby. His sisters have called him Bubby for a very long time. But for me, it's always been Boomer. So what are some of your nicknames and some that are your favorites? And you know what? Maybe in this discussion, there have probably been some nicknames that have been very hurtful. What kind of nicknames have you had or have given to others? I know, like I said, there are siblings that give out nicknames other than Bubby. And I know people can comment. I know some of those nicknames of siblings giving to other siblings their nicknames. I sure would love to hear those. So make sure you write them in the comments. Let me know. Even do like I just did. Tell a story of the nicknames that you have. I'm so glad that you joined me this week for Hello Again Wednesday number 67. Be sure and check us out again next week. Like I said, leave comments, hit the like button, hit the share button, and all of that. And I will see you at Bible study at 2 p.m. Or I will also see you. I will see you next Wednesday. Next Wednesday at 2 p.m. is our Bible study, and I'm out of here.